Legal loopholes. Credit repair tactic exposed. Chapter 1. Legal loopholes. Legal loopholes have become a way of life for countless Americans. The moral fiber of this country's legislation has been knitted and riddled throughout with loopholes. Governments may have political motives for creating legislation with many of these little-known legal loopholes. Tax rules that allow people to avoid paying taxes are sometimes called shelters or tax loopholes. Multi-billionaire Warren Buffett pays less taxes than his secretary because of tax loopholes. Many people search endlessly for loopholes, and countless businesses have relocated to other states to avoid paying taxes and to take advantage of these legal loopholes. Interestingly, U.S. entertainer W.C. Fields, 1880 to 1946, that was his lifespan, stated during his illness, "I have spent a lot of time searching through the Bible for loopholes. The dictionary defines the word loophole as follows: a means of escape or evasion, a means of opportunity of evading a rule, law, etc. There are a number of loopholes in the tax laws whereby corporations can save money. Edinburgh Castle is a historically dominating 15th century landmark with picturesque palaces, towers, prisons, and battlements. Many early 15th and 16th century castles were greatly fortified with battlements. Interestingly, battlements contained a small, narrow opening called a loophole. It was through the loophole that missiles were discharged at the enemy. While medieval warfare in the early centuries consisted of battering rams and catapults as a means to penetrate fortified castles, today creditors and credit bureaus use inaccurate information as a means to invade your castle, home, and to assassinate and destroy your character and overall creditworthiness." Wow. I don't know if it goes that far, but destroy your character and overall creditworthiness. Errors on your credit report can lead to a higher interest rate. Financial instabilities have been proven to cause marital and family problems in the castle. Parentheses, home. It is my hopes that by utilizing these tactics and little-known loopholes in this book, you will be able to protect your castle and get out of the perpetual debtor's prison. Interesting loopholes. The news media recently broadcasted a story about 48-year-old John Goodman, the founder of the International Polo Club, which some have estimated is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. John Goodman was accused of causing an automobile accident that resulted in the death of a Florida man. The family of the Florida man filed a civil suit against the millionaire, and the millionaire adopted his 42-year-old girlfriend as his daughter. This preserved assets from pending lawsuits and allowed his new daughter/girlfriend immediate access to 70% of funds. Under Florida law, the adoption diverts 1/3 of the trust fund he had set up for his biological children. The Florida law is obviously riddled with loopholes. In addition, there is a legal loophole clause in the Turkish law that allows settlers to build houses on government-owned land without fear of being removed by the authorities. The only clause is the house has to be built in a single night. This practice is now widespread, and the name for these settlements is Gisekundu. It's Turkish for built overnight. Credit loopholes. Credit loopholes tend to be viewed negatively by those who stand to be impacted financially when the poor or middle class take advantage of these little-known legal tactics. Presidential candidate Mitt Romney made the bold statement that he was not concerned about the very poor. This same candidate made approximately $40 million in 2 years and was taxed at about a 14% tax bracket. thus paying fewer taxes than the average middle-class citizen because of tax loopholes. The Obama campaign accused presidential candidate Mitt Romney of utilizing loopholes and tax shelters only available to those at the top. What many fail to realize is that America's poor citizens were once America's former middle class citizens. But because of circumstances out of their control, economy, or job loss, they may have a hard time paying their rent, mortgages, car notes, etc., thus creating an indelible impression on their creditworthiness. Interest rates are at an all-time historical low, and the only people that are able to take advantage of these rates are those with good credit. While Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke said he would keep the interest rates low through 2014, the central bank has pledged to keep short-term interest rates low through 2015. The difference in a traditional home loan can amount to over $100,000 for the term of the loan for someone with a 620 credit score versus someone with a 700 credit score. Additionally, your credit score directly impacts the amount of interest you can be expected to pay on your credit cards. Credit repair companies thrive and operate on one legal loophole clause in the Fair Credit Reporting Act under Section 611 that allows consumers the right to initiate and dispute inaccurate information. Some credit repair companies charge as much as several $1,000s to assist others in repairing their credit using this very clause. The Fair Credit Reporting Act states as follows. 611. Procedure in case of disputed accuracy, and then in brackets 15 USC 1681 I brackets. And then parentheses, small a, reinvestigation of disputed information. 1. Reinvestigation required. A. In general, subject to subsection F, if the completeness or accuracy of any information contained in the consumer's file at a consumer reporting agency is disputed by the consumer, and the consumer notifies the agency directly or indirectly through a reseller of such dispute, the agency shall, free of charge, conduct a reasonable investigation to determine whether the information disputed is inaccurate and the record and record the current status of the disputed information, or delete the item from the file in accordance with paragraph 5 before the end of the 30-day period beginning on the date on which the agency receives notice of the dispute from consumer or reseller. While the Identity Theft Resource Center has said that it could take up to 600 hours to remedy the effects of identity theft, there is a provision loophole in the Fair Credit Reporting Act that states identity theft must be resolved in 4 business days. The Fair Credit Reporting Act states in relevant part of the following. 605B, balk of information resulting from identity theft, brackets 15 USC and 1681 C-2, bracket A. Block. Except as otherwise provided in this section, a consumer reporting agency shall block the reporting of any information in the file of a consumer that the consumer identifies as information that resulted from an alleged identity theft, not later than 4 business days after the date of receipt by such agency. Additionally, there is a clause in the federal law that allows you to send one letter to the debt collectors to cease and desist all phone calls and communication. If the debt collector violates this law, they can be required to pay you. The Fair Debt Collection Practices Act states, in relevant part, the following. Section 805, communication in connection with debt collection. Paragraph C. Ceasing communication. If a consumer notifies a debt collector in writing that the consumer refuses to pay a debt, or that the consumer wishes the debt collector to cease communication with the consumer, the debt collector shall not communicate further with the consumer with respect to such debt. In addition, there is another loophole in the federal law that forces debt collectors to validate the debt within a 30-day period. If the debt collector fails to validate the account, they must, in turn, cease all collections and reporting activity of the account in question. They are not allowed to merely send you a printout of the debt, but must send you the signed judgments, original contracts, etc. This covers all debts and does not specify any limits on amounts, mortgages included. The Fair Debt Collection Practices Act states, in relevant part, the following. Section 809, validation of debts. Section B. If the consumer notifies the debt collector in writing within the 30-day period described in subsection A that the debt or any portion thereof is disputed, or that the consumer requests the name and address of the original creditor, the debt collector shall cease collection of the debt or any disputed portion thereof until the debt collector obtains verification of the debt or any copy of the judgment or the name and address of the original creditor, and a copy of such verification or judgment or name and address of the original creditor is mailed to the consumer by the debt. Medical bills account for roughly half of all collections. However, the new Affordable Care Act has implemented loopholes provisions, IRS Section 501, paragraph R, that benefit and protect the poor and middle class from large hospital, only tax-exempt hospitals, their bills. Nonprofit hospitals now must refrain from extraordinary collection actions, limit fees for eligible patients, establish financial assistance programs, etc., or risk losing their tax-exempt status. If you are having difficulty paying your nonprofit hospital bills, you can request the hospital written financial assistance policy pursuant to the Affordable Care Act, ACA. I believe that everyone deserves a second chance at credit, or should be privileged with the information that only the elite know. So I am exposing the credit and the credit repair industry throughout this book. I will disclose many more loopholes and tactics debt collectors, credit bureaus, and even credit repair companies don't want you to know. I will explain step by step how to utilize these tactics effectively, as well as provide you with a sample legal form letters that have gotten proven results. In addition, I will provide actual real correspondence letters that have been mailed to consumers by debt collectors and credit bureaus, although the names have been changed to protect the innocent. It's the end of chapter 1.